What is up, everybody? Escape211 here, and today we are going to be starting a new series that I'm simply going to be calling Best Loadouts. Now, I've heard a lot of people that talk or ask about what should I use when I unlock this mech, what's good with him, what should I use later, what's a good endgame build, all this kind of stuff. Great questions, of course, and it's definitely something that we want to talk about. So I want to do that, and we're going to pick a different mech each time and discuss. And to start, we are going to use Panther. Panther is one of those mechs that you can get early on and you will find useful throughout the entire game. So it's a perfect one to start in this discussion so that we can go through each section of the game and talk about what is good on him. All right, so let's start with the early game. When you first unlock Panther, he has 12 energy. 12 energy is probably the largest amount that you have early game when you unlock him, so you're going to want to put likely dual 6 weapons on him. And because he's such a useful mech and with a shield and everything, the RPG 6 is probably what I would recommend the most. This will allow you to do good damage as well as make great use of your barrier. It's a solid build, and it's probably the strongest that you have at this point in time. All right, so another option that you could do at the 12 energy would be the Javelin 6 if you have unlocked it. A lot of people may not have spent the A coins or had the A coins to spend this early in the game to get them, but if you do, it is a solid option to put on Panther as well. Again, there are probably not many other options that you have at this energy loadout this early in the game, so he will be a great option. And between the RPG or the Javelin 6s, I think the Javelin 6s are better, especially because they already come at 3-star, so they'll probably be the most damaging thing you have early game. So Panther would be able to stay behind cover, keep himself safe, and if anything confronts him or if he needs to step out to get a lock on someone, you have the barrier. It's a very safe way to play, and it's very effective. Now, mid-game, you're going to see somewhere in the 16 to 20 energy realm, and in this area, you'd probably want to do something that's going to let you dual wield some pretty heavy weapons at 8 energy. One of the common ones that I do when I first get to 16 energy is the Long Arm 8, dual wielding this. This is a great long range build, and it definitely, is a little bit specific and works better for specific maps than others where you can really create some good distance between you and your target and really benefit from the strong points of the long arm. But it's also very devastating, and it's a great way to practice getting used to with the long arm, as well as being safe, because you can put up your barrier, you can take your time locking onto or like finding your target and then taking some shots at them. Now, another option that you could do at this level would be more of a strike package, more of a hit and run damaging package, and that would be the Missile Rack 8s. Not everyone, again, has them unlocked. It's a lot of credits to save up for, but it is well worth the investment. And if you haven't gotten these, I would strongly suggest saving up to get them. The Missile Rack 8s are a really great weapon on a lot of mechs, and Panther is no exception. And I would say on certain maps, he is one of the ideal candidates for this weapon and for the loadout of dual Missile Rack 8s. The prime example in my mind would be the Acropolis Tournament map. He is ideal in that kind of situation. This loadout, with the amount of tunnels or small areas that you have, as well as the amount of things that the rockets can hit and do splash damage off of, it is really effective, and it's one of my favorite builds to do on that map. Even though my Panther is up to 24 energy, whenever I'm on that map, I still put the Missile Rack 8s on because he is so effective with that. So those are two really good builds at the mid-level that I would suggest using. Now, when we get to endgame and you are at 24 energy, this is where you can really pile on the damage with Panther. He's one of the few mechs that can actually get up to 24 energy, and with his shield that can protect him, he is a monster. There's a lot of different loadouts that you can do with Panther because he has so much energy, but here are a few strong endgame options. First of all, you could dual wield the Carbine 12s. Now, again, we're thinking endgame, so hopefully you've already locked the Carbine 12, and hopefully you're able to level it up to get the second copy. And if you can, this is a devastating loadout, especially close up. With your barrier in place, you should be able to destroy anything. And what's really nice about this build is that it works good on just about any map. You know how javelins or rocket mortars or other things will require certain setups and certain types of maps to really benefit from. Carbines are great on any map, and this is the most devastating loadout that you can do if you're going to focus on the carbine. So with Panther, this is a solid loadout to do if you're able to get it. The next option that I would do, and one that I commonly do, is the railgun with the long arm. Now, if you're going for the long range game like you earlier did with your long arm 8s and you like that style of play, this is the end game long range play right here. This is the solid definition of, end game to really pile on the damage. What I really like about this build is it allows you to do really good at long range, and then even as enemies get close up to you, the railgun, since it doesn't have a minimum range requirement like the long arm, can still be very effective up close. So it covers that gap that the long arm used to have when you were at 16 energy. It's just a really solid loadout, and I like it for a lot of purposes. The next loadout would be a variation of that previous loadout, the railgun and the long arm. This loadout would be the railgun and the missile rack 8. Now, the reason we're doing this version is because maybe you don't care as much about the long range game, but you want that burst damage, and this is most times to deal with the shields on enemies. Now, the previous build that I had just talked about, the railgun and the long arm 8, suffer up close if the enemy is an Ares or a Juggernaut and they're closing in on you with a shield. Your long arm 8 is probably not going to do enough damage to knock that shield down, but a missile rack 8 will do great at taking it down, and it's a solid option. The not so great benefit about this is that you're going to have to be comfortable with firing your weapons separately, because you don't want to accidentally fire off your missile rack 8 when you don't want to, since it uses your entire payload. But when you want to do it, this is a solid setup. And I've actually found this setup can be a little more devastating than the railgun long arm setup, and still has a strong range all the way up to about 100 meters where it's still pretty effective. So it's definitely one that I would recommend people try. Now, the last build is one that I personally do not use, but another option that could be out there if you haven't unlocked some of the other prototype weapons that I mentioned. Another option would be dual rocket mortar 12s. Now, like I've said, I'm not a person who uses the rocket mortars too much, and I'm not very good with them, quite honestly. But being that Panther is one of those mechs that can get to 24 energy, he's one of the ones that can effectively use the rocket mortars pretty well, especially at this high level. If you're a person who uses this and has leveled it up, then dual wielding it on Panther is not a bad idea. There are other mechs that you could dual wield it on, like Paragon or Guardian, but Panther is likely one of those mechs that you're going to take to 24 energy, and he's not a bad option for this. And his shield will protect you if enemies get too close, or if you have to peek out of cover somewhere to try and get a lock on someone. So it actually is a very safe build, but it's one that I don't really use because I think that, I'm not really good at the camper style build, and I don't think it gets enough kills, whereas some of these other builds will kill your enemies a whole lot faster. But if you haven't been able to unlock the prototypes, this isn't a bad build to do. All right, so I hope that was helpful for all of you guys. Those are just some build options that I really like, that I use, that I find very strong. Of course, there's tons of different builds that you can do out there, and this only covers some of the ones that I have used the most commonly or seen the most commonly. So if you have certain builds that you like on this mech, please feel free to mention that below. And also, if there's certain mechs that you want to see in this best loadout type of series, please let me know, and we will see you out there on the battlefield.